I wanted to introduce you to a man by the name of Peter Ferrara. Peter is a former aide to Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. He's the author of a couple of books, Power to the People, The New Road to Freedom and Prosperity for the Poor, Seniors, and Those Most in Need of the World's Best Health Care. And the other book is The Obamacare Disaster. I wanted to have him on to talk a little bit about the insurance industry, what they're doing to undercut the president's recent actions concerning healthcare transparency efforts. Peter, welcome to the program. How are you this morning?
Good. Glad to be here.
So glad that you are with us. Now, number one, I guess in the news, speaking of your book, The Obamacare Disaster, we do have the individual mandate in the Fifth Circuit, was struck down yesterday. I wonder if I get your comment on that before we move on to the insurance industry.
Well, that's liberating to get rid of the individual mandate. It's already was repealed and not really replaced. Actually,
yeah,
they repealed the individual mandate in the tax reform bill, and so the fact that they struck it down yesterday is unconstitutional. It's not really going to change much as a result because we already repealed it.
Yeah. And that was definitely a good thing. And those tax cuts, I think, ended up being pretty productive as well. Well, so what can you tell us about the health insurance industry? And why don't they want to be more transparent in their pricing?
Well, that's their mode of operation, so that's one of the unattractive features of the system, the way it is even today, still the same. Obamacare hasn't really changed that aspect very much. So, Obamacare just made the system much more expensive, and it reduced access to some degree to health care because of all the regulations on health care and health insurance from Obamacare. So, everything that they promised under Obamacare to get it passed, the exact opposite has happened. So they said, if you like your insurance, you can keep your insurance. But it turned out that if Obama likes your plan, you could keep your plan.
Right.
And because millions of people lost health insurance they had because it wasn't compliant with all the Obamacare regulations. And all the taxes and regulations under Obamacare were a drag on the economy. So it was a very slow recovery from the recession 10 years ago under President Obama. Until Trump was elected, the economy then took off on a boom because investors anticipated what he was going to do with the tax cuts and the deregulation. And so that was a huge benefit for the economy and for the American people.
So, the president has had some recent efforts to make the healthcare industry more transparent. Can you detail what some of those efforts are and how the insurance industry is undercutting that aspect of what he's trying to do?
Well, there's this issue over what's called surprise medical billing. And that occurs when you experience some kind of severe injury and you're taken to a hospital that turns out to be out of your health insurance network. And so you think you're covered for that, but it's out of network, so you're not covered for that. And so then you get a bill that actually is not covered, and usually for thousands and thousands of dollars that you can't possibly pay. So the Congress is now considering a bill to try and fix that so that consumers don't suffer through that experience any longer. And so they need to fix that with competition and rather than more government regulation, than more price. Basically, the bill that's under consideration now, it basically involves price controls, and price controls need to be understood as not necessarily lower prices, but reduced access to health care. And so what they need to do is use more of a market mechanism, which is arbitration. They need to get the doctors and the insurance companies together in a room and have them settle the payment for health care and leave the consumer out of it at that point, because the insurance company is not going to cover it and the consumer is not in a position to pay for it. So that's the direction they need to take us. President Trump has adopted some desirable transparency regulation that requires insurance companies to post the cost of health care treatments under their insurance, so people will know what to expect, and that's beneficial. We're not. Trump is not against all regulations, but sometimes regulations needed, and this transparency regulation is good and highly desirable.
Yeah. We're talking with Peter Ferrara, former presidential aide to Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush, also the author of a couple of books. And let me ask you this: on this road to socialism, and I know, listen, I mean, I view insurance companies as getting between, patient and doctor. I mean, that's the way I do it. But I also know the government's so heavily involved in the healthcare industry already. It's very blurry. You can't really tell, and especially in my home state of Arkansas, where we are broadcasting, we expanded Medicaid, but we did it by giving $600 a month per person to Blue Cross Blue Shield, regardless of whether or not anybody goes to the doctor or not. And we're talking about Medicaid here. And so instead of fee-for-service, this is what we decided to just give the insurance companies all this money, and they're guaranteed in the law 20% profit. I mean, it literally is, you talk about cronies. That's what we did here in my state, and we're still suffering from it today. But I have this theory that if we continue on this road to socialized health care, and I think the president's trying to stop that, but I really think some of these insurance companies, Peter, are essentially just going, they're okay with it. They're okay with the loss of profit motive maybe in the long run, because they'll probably get absorbed into the national health system, and they'll be the bureaucrats administering, this, quote, right to health care. At least that's my theory. What do you think?
Well, I think we took a wrong turn with Obamacare, and so that is the theme of Obamacare is threatening the access to health care, and so Medicaid is not a good system. Does not work well for the poor. Medicaid is distinct from Medicare. Medicare is for seniors. Medicaid is for poor people, and the government doesn't pay the doctors and hospitals enough to assure that they're going to get health care. And so it becomes an institutionalized means to deny health care. And they make all these promises. We're going to have this great program for the poor, they promise, and they'll be able to get health care. But not if they're not going to pay doctors and hospitals enough to provide the health care. And so insurance companies do not provide health care. They're supposed to be paying for health care. And so if you have a system that basically functions to shovel money to insurance companies rather than the doctors and hospitals, it means that you're going to be denied access to health care. And that's what happens under Medicaid across the country. And so just giving money to insurance companies is not going to get health care for anybody.
Yep, that's exactly right. Peter Ferrara, I appreciate your time. It's great to meet you, sir. Thank you so much for your work in this, and we'll keep plugging along. Maybe we'll make some headway.
All right, very good. All right, well, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Peter Ferrara, everybody.